Imagine a world where everything is perfect. There are no wars, no conflicts, no poverty. Resources are so plentiful and abundant that there's not even a need for money itself. There's advanced technology 5,000 years ahead of its time, and it's essentially a real life utopia. This sounds like science fiction, like a fantasy, something in the very distant, extremely far off future. Maybe a futuristic city in the year 3300 AD or so. But this isn't science fiction. It is not a fairy tale. This actually happened in our reality. All you have to do is change two letters on the date. This civilization already existed not in 3300 AD, but in 3300 BC. And they left behind a very interesting history that is an absolute must watch for all of us. Welcome to the story of the Indus Valley Civilization. Quick disclaimer, this is a historical video and not a political one. It is not meant to convince anyone to be a communist or socialist, it's just meant to shed some light on a very interesting piece of history that you'll likely have never heard of before. If you want to know my personal political opinion on all of this, I'll briefly share it at the very end. So, those of you who follow me regularly know that I'm no fan of capitalism, but I always try to be fair, honest, and objective as well. I've never felt that communism was the solution either, and I think the future will require a whole new system. As much as I dislike capitalists, I will acknowledge that they do have a point when it comes to history. Inequality and exploitation are not an inherent feature of capitalism solely, they seem to just be a part of human nature no matter where you look. Capitalism may have made it worse, for sure, but it certainly didn't invent it. Every civilization in history shows major markers of inequality. Kings and emperors had extravagant tombs and monuments, while everyone else was left with scraps and tiny mud huts. All civilizations were brutal, violent, and unequal. All of them, it appears, except for one. In 1924, archaeologist John Marshall would make a shocking discovery that would upend absolutely everything we thought we knew about the world. It upended everything we thought we knew about politics, economies, civilization. It quite possibly upended everything we thought we knew about human nature itself. It all began in the Indus Valley, a region surrounding the Indus River between modern-day India and Pakistan. These archaeologists would discover a mysterious hidden civilization with advanced technologies over 5,000 years ahead of its time. Urban infrastructure with advanced grid systems intersecting at perfect exact angles, advanced hydraulic engineering with hundreds of functioning wells, and large watertight leak-proof tanks. Most notably, the Great Bath. They even had a standardized, consistent decimal measurement system that the United States still doesn't have to this day in 2026. But their most impressive and advanced technology was, believe it or not, toilets. Yes, you heard that right, toilets. It sounds silly in the modern day because it's a technology that we totally take for granted now. But you have to understand how big of a deal this was at any point before the 20th century. Human waste was literally the bane of our existence before the invention of flushable toilets and indoor plumbing. For thousands of years, no one could come up with an efficient solution on how to effectively get it out of our cities and villages, and this meant that for billions of our ancestors, they lived in constant filth, disease, and even death. The Roman Empire did have some form of toilets 2,000 years ago, and this was already considered pretty far ahead of its time, but they were mostly public latrines with constant running water and not the on-demand flushing kind we're used to today. Even the Roman Empire, one of the most advanced civilizations we're familiar with today, having a private flushing toilet was a privilege for a very few wealthy elites. Alright, I know this is gross. I promise we'll be done talking about toilets soon here. So, what if I told you that in the Indus Valley Civilization in 3300 BC, every single household had a working, flushable toilet, a bathroom, and a shower area, all connected to an advanced and intricate sanitation wastewater management network that wouldn't be matched by modern civilization until the 20th century, over 5,000 years later. And now you get an idea of just how incredibly advanced the Indus Valley Civilization was. But what shocked archaeologists the most wasn't what they found, it was what they did not find. Archaeological evidence has shown throughout time that every civilization has markers of great inequality, wars, violence, and exploitation. Massive swaths of ancient weapons and fortifications indicating the need for protection from outside threats. Excavated battle sites of slaughtered skeletons completely covered in fatal violent wounds. And this is where the story gets really, really crazy, because we literally don't see any of that at all in the Indus Valley Civilization. No matter how many endless years we dig, not a single shred of evidence ever comes up. For starters, just about every house is more or less the same size in the Indus Valley Civilization. There's no sign of a grand luxurious palace for a king and tiny cramped apartments for everyone else. Everyone had their own house of about 50 to 100 square meters. They were clearly an extremely and intensely egalitarian society. To get an idea of just how psychotically egalitarian they were, even every brick across the entire civilization was exactly the same. Yes, you heard that right. 5,000 years ago, in a civilization that spanned an entire modern nation, human beings somehow figured out how to use the exact same standard brick measurement to build every single structure across the entire civilization. This is a feat that would be impossible to coordinate even with all our precise laser measurements and instantaneous online communications. So, let it sink in that a civilization 5,000 years ago figured out how to use the exact same brick measurement system across dozens of cities from the Middle East all the way to India. Your mind is probably completely blown by now, but don't worry, the most mind-blowing part is still yet to come. As I mentioned earlier, what shocked archaeologists more than what they did find in the Indus Valley Civilization was what they did not find. There are two key universal constants we find in just about every modern and ancient society that seem to be universally required in order to sustain a civilization: money and weapons. Money is obviously necessary to power an economy to facilitate the efficient exchange of different goods and services. Almost every civilization we've ever discovered had some form of money. All, once again, except for one. Despite all these decades of digging, excavating, and research, no one has ever found anything resembling a coin, a paper note, or something that could be used and recognized as currency in the Indus Valley Civilization. And then there's an even more mysterious issue of weapons. You probably guessed it by now. No one has ever found anything resembling a weapon here either. And the implications for this are far bigger than anything else we've discussed up until this point. It's been a long-held belief, universally accepted by just about everyone, that you need militaries, violence, and war to build, defend, and protect organized society. It's not just every modern country today, but every nation-state we've ever observed throughout history has had some form of military, which always leaves behind historical evidence in the form of weapons. Our early ancestors had clubs and axes. Later on, we had bows and then guns and then artillery. And of course, today we have nukes, drones, and missiles. The types of weapons we invent obviously change and evolve over time, but what never changes, what has always been universal and timeless, is that civilizations have always needed to fight wars and sacrifice blood as a price to pay for a peaceful, safe society. And yet somehow, once again, the Indus Valley Civilization continues to defy all the universal laws of basic human behavior and nature itself. Now, at this point, it would be very helpful if we could come up with a label for the Indus Valley Civilization to be able to define in one word exactly what political and economic system they were running on. We know from the universally equal-sized bricks and houses that they were a classless society. We know from the lack of any kings, pharaohs, or emperors or government buildings that they were a stateless society. And finally, we know that from the absence of evidence of any sort of money, that they were a moneyless society. This is starting to sound familiar. This is starting to sound a lot like the classless, stateless, moneyless, communist utopia that Karl Marx once envisioned in his famous magnum opus, the Communist Manifesto. Hey guys, we noticed something very interesting in the YouTube analytics recently. It appears that the single most important metric for the long term success of a video isn't actually likes or clicks, it's actually how many people end up subscribing. So, if you found this video important and useful, the best thing you can do to help us get the message out is to simply subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all so much, guys. We really, truly appreciate it. So we've explored all the incredible, mind-blowing, and downright mystical characteristics that made the Indus Valley Civilization not only build a super advanced society, but challenge everything we thought we knew about the laws of nature itself. At this point, there's only one burning remaining question to be asked that I'm sure you're desperately wanting to be answered by now. How the hell did they manage to pull this off? How did they even do all this? How did they incentivize people to build such incredible buildings without even using money? How did they protect their borders and fight off invaders without having a single weapon? How did they accomplish what literally no other human civilization could possibly even conceptualize? And this is where the story becomes not just confusing, but even quite frustrating. Unfortunately, the biggest tragedy in all of this is that no one has been able to translate their texts. They were obviously very literate and educated. They left behind countless writings to tell their story. But as of right now, we just don't know what it is they're saying. And as a result, we can only try to speculate and deduce what went on in this mysterious ancient socialist utopia. Experts have theorized and speculated that the civilization ran on some combination of a high-trust gift economy, specialized worker councils, and likely some sort of barter economy. But unfortunately, until we're able to decipher their scripts, no one can know exactly for sure. And so here's my own personal political opinion about all this. The Indus Valley Civilization has proven that contrary to what all the political pundits on both sides say today, there actually has been a time in history when communism has in fact worked. Now, obviously, 3300 BC is very different from 2026 AD, and in a complex modern global economy, it's not necessarily proof that we could emulate or replicate their system today. And the biggest problem still remains that although they did somehow make communism work, we still don't know exactly how they did it, as their mysterious text remains an elusive mystery. Without knowing how exactly they did it and whether it be replicable in the modern world, I'm personally going to stop short of this turning me into a communist myself. But it is definitely a hell of an interesting piece of nature that's changed the way I view human nature, and boy, would I love to find out what's in their mysterious text one day. And what's even more mysterious than their existence is their collapse and eventual disappearance. No one can quite seem to figure out exactly how and why this mysterious utopian ancient civilization collapsed. It's as if one day they were there and the next they just weren't. The most common theories are climate change disrupting the Indus River they so heavily relied on, or a massive war where they got conquered by another civilization, though that one seems a bit unlikely to me given the lack of violence and weapons in the archaeological record. They are truly one of the biggest mysteries and enigmas in all of human history. And perhaps frustratingly so. In a time when we're all suffering so much under the modern day system, they might contain some valuable answers and solutions we can all learn from. But again, we'll never know until someone comes along and is able to translate their text. But the most important lesson we can learn from the Indus Valley Civilization isn't about communism, socialism, or capitalism. These are, at the end of the day, all just pointless labels used to distract and divide us. The biggest and most valuable lesson we can learn from all this is that our ancient ancestors are in many ways just like us. For far too long, history has been dishonestly rewritten and cherry-picked to brainwash and gaslight you into accepting less than what you deserve. You should be grateful. The past was always horrible. People were always a bunch of brute savages bashing each other's brains in. And my personal favorite one that's now been decisively debunked: no one even had toilets back then. We are very arrogant in thinking that only now in the modern day we are sophisticated, civilized, and peaceful. And yeah, I'm not even sure that's still true at this point anymore. To think that in 2026 we stand alone as the only civilized and intelligent society in history is a combination of modern arrogance and elite brainwashing to try and keep us obedient and docile while they endlessly exploit us. The Indus Valley Civilization proves that people in the past, in many, many ways, were just like us. They lived, they laughed, they loved. They shared resources, worked together, and cooperated to uplift everyone. They had empathy, compassion, and warmth. And perhaps most importantly, they showed us that contrary to what we've been repeatedly told, none of that is a weakness or an unrealistic fairy tale. History isn't just blood, wars, violence, and atrocity. We can also build great societies through kindness, empathy, and selflessness. And they have historically proved that we've already done it before. And hey, just as an extra bonus, even though I'm personally not a communist, for all of you young communists out there who are watching this video, the next time your delusional capitalist boomer parents asks you the typical condescending, name one time when communism has worked, you do now have a cheeky little answer you can give them that's sure to totally catch them off guard and make them look really stupid. So at this point, you're probably asking, hey, PG, if you're not a communist or capitalist, what system exactly are you in favor of? In my opinion, the best solution going forward is an interesting system known as geoism that you probably haven't heard of before. It's a very promising solution for the challenges of the modern world we live in, and we cover it more in this video right here. Check it out. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.